David Katz was a well-known competitor and video game player for games such as Madden. He also went by the name Brett and won tournaments in 2017. He was known for being overconfident, saying that he was better than most players that he would compete against. And here in this photo, David is seen winning the Madden 17 Bills Championship Tournament. And in 2018, a video game tournament was being held for Madden NFL 19 in Jacksonville, Florida, specifically at the Jacksonville Landing, a downtown shopping and dining complex. There were at least 150 people participating and watching the tournament. This footage is from his previous tournament, where he would always be in this emotionless state, even after winning. And when it was finally time for David to compete, things didn't go in his favor. He would then lose his match. He refused to shake the hand of the winner. He remained silent and cold-faced, his eyes completely empty and void. He simply left the building of the tournament, only to return with a firearm that had a laser sight attached to it. He would then use it 12 times inside the venue, taking the lives of 2 other professional gamers and wounding 10 others who were present. And after that, he would then use the same weapon on himself. David Katz had previously been treated for psychological and emotional issues. He has a history of mental illness and police visits to the family home. One student who graduated a year ahead of David remembered him as a video gamer who was, quote, antisocial. He stayed to himself and didn't talk much. He was a good guy, and I couldn't imagine him doing such a thing. Personal notes were found at the home, where David would express his animosity towards his mother, saying that there was no one else that he despised more.
At this point, I don't know what's going to happen. I may get caught right away. Basically, if I get caught, I'm just going to myself. So, I could basically be in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I don't know. It's all up to chance at this point.
Peter Keller was a man who recorded various vlogs and video diaries. He was seen as a devout husband and father, a generous and loving person to his family and peers, and he was married for 21 years. But there was much more going on beneath the surface. He considered himself a survivalist with a doomsday mentality, and he journaled his life through these video diaries. Located near Seattle, Washington, Peter would vlog himself building his bunker, a passion project that he would spend 8 years creating. But there's a deeper underlying purpose for this bunker. It was 2-leveled and housed with a kitchen, beds, weapons and supplies, a power supply, and most essentials that someone would need to survive for a long time. You see, Peter expressed his disdain for normal life, having to pay bills, having to conform to society, and he was displeased with having to work.
I'm getting to the point where just trying to live and pay bills and live as a civilian and go to work, that just freaks me out.
When he would rather just go into a bank with a weapon and take everything that they had. As he'd say in his videos, he also feared that his wife would lead him into financial turmoil after she suffered a job injury, and she would invest more of their money into a crafting business as a way to deal with her chronic pain. Meanwhile, Peter explains how sad his life is, how he has no motivations anymore, no happiness and no joy, no hope for the future. And not only that, but he hated his wife and daughter especially. But building this bunker was what truly gave him a purpose. And with this bunker, he could see his plans come into fruition, which is to take the lives of his wife and daughter and to live out in the wilderness. He's very calm and casual when he documents his intentions, which makes his videos truly eerie. But it was through these video journals that Peter's mind gradually deteriorates. In 2012, he filmed these last moments before following through with his plan, the year that he finally completes his bunker. And using a silenced weapon, his wife Lynette and daughter Kayleen will lose their lives. He would then torch the family home and rig it with gas cans and traps to cover up any evidence. Explosives were also found but were not activated. And it wasn't long before law enforcement would begin to investigate. For a few days, he would hide himself in the bunker, as SWAT teams would eventually begin to close in on him. Law enforcement quote his bunker as being amazingly fortified, with the outside photos not doing it justice. Tens and thousands of dollars were found inside, and were used to establish a scholarship for his daughter Kayleen, geared towards students with similar interests, as Kayleen had a passion in video game design. This next photo shows a man named Travis Alexander, taken by Jodi Arias, just moments before she took his life. A grim look in his eyes, moments before being slain by someone he was once so close to. The name Jodi Arias may ring a bell to some. Her case was pretty big a while back, and this photo was captured as Travis was taking a shower, which was where she approached him with a camera and also a firearm. She was the lover of Travis Alexander, or rather one of his lovers, who was driven by passion when she took his life. And I bring this up because Jodi Arias has been getting a lot of sympathy from the younger generations, with videos that I've seen aimed at defending her and even glamorizing her actions. And like other criminals, I think she's often glamorized because of her looks, which is usually the case, but she's been sentenced to life already. The crime scene photos are actually some of the most vile stuff that I've seen. Nothing about it says self-defense, but the thing she did to him with a knife is too horrible to describe here. Apparently for him, it was all just physical when it came to Jodi, while she was a bit more obsessed. She's known for her narcissistic ways, and even other inmates add on to this statement. Jodi is still trying to appeal her conviction even after all these years. In the 1970s, there was a sick and twisted criminal that roamed the areas of Kansas and Wichita. He would wear a strange white mask and a wig to try and feminize himself, also wearing his previous victim's clothing, as you can see in this photo. He enjoyed tying himself up to reenact his crimes, even binding himself into a chair to play out his fantasies. These type of photos were later discovered, but too graphic to show here. He would take these odd selfies before or after going for his next victim, specifically helpless women. Stalking was a part of his methods, where he would often spy through the windows of women in the area. Dennis Rader lived a double life, labeling himself as BTK, an acronym used to describe how he terrorized his victims. Outside of that, he was a family man who installed security alarms for a living, even having 2 children. He was a member of the Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita, and at one point he was elected president of the church council, but he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Dennis would intentionally leave notes and poems after committing horrible crimes, leading the police into a game of cat and mouse, while they desperately followed his trail for over 20 years, with Dennis claiming 10 lives and possibly more throughout this period. But he enjoyed the media attention, and he enjoyed playing this game with the police. Up until 2004, the name BTK would slowly begin to fade from the public consciousness. This case would officially go cold, but then a book was released on Dennis and his crimes, which caused him to take up the name BTK once again and toy with the media for a final time. This would finally lead into his arrest in 2005. His crime spree lasted from 1974 to 1991, and he is now serving 10 consecutive life sentences. In 1976, Annaliese Michel, a young girl from Germany, would undergo 67 Catholic exorcisms for nearly an entire year. Annaliese had a very religious upbringing and even went to Mass twice a week, and lived with 3 sisters and both parents. It began with sudden blackouts at school, where Annaliese would wander around in a trance-like state. After this, her parents would then put her on medications to try and alleviate her issues. She was diagnosed with disorders such as psychosis and depression. However, at some point, Annaliese would have seizures that began to have extreme effects on her. The medications offered no major improvements for her. She would then claim to hear voices that tell her that she's going to hell. This is when Annaliese's parents came to the conclusion that she's under some sort of possession. Her behavior would become even more strange and downright horrifying. The family would finally get in touch with a local bishop who allowed exorcisms to be performed on Annaliese. These exorcisms would last for hours upon hours, totaling with 67 altogether. Annaliese's mental state would continue to deteriorate. Annaliese even goes on to name Lucifer, Cain, Judas, and even that one famous painter as the ones possessing her. During these months, she stopped eating and even suffered injuries from being in a constant praying position. And unfortunately, Annaliese would soon pass due to dehydration and malnutrition, weighing only around 70 pounds. The priests who performed on her were sent to trial along with her parents. The Catholic Church would speak out years later and retracted the statement that Annaliese was ever possessed at all, and that her untimely fate could have been prevented. Here in this photo, we have the Lawson family of Germantown, North Carolina. This was taken in 1929, right before Christmas. Charles Lawson and Fanny Mannering had 8 children together and were modest tobacco farmers, a working-class family that was saving money to purchase property and land. But things would take a sudden, grim turn. On December 25th, the day of Christmas, Charlie used a 12-gauge shotgun to remove his entire family. He even made sure they weren't breathing by striking them with blunt objects. And after that, Charlie would toss them into the tobacco farm, and then he would use the same weapon on himself. It's widely speculated that Charlie would essay his 17-year-old daughter, eventually to the point that she became with child, with other distant family members giving their own experiences and further adding to these theories. Also adding that mental illness was rampant along this family tree. Financial struggles could have also played a part in Charlie's actions, with the Wall Street crash happening 2 months beforehand and all the uncertainties in the tobacco industry. Charlie Lawson is currently buried next to the same family that he unalived. One son survived the ordeal, the one who went to run an errand. This son was just as tall as Charlie, as seen in the picture. He's presumably the only son that could have overpowered him, which could have been the reason for sending him on an errand. This last surviving son unfortunately lost his life in a car accident at 32.